Welcome to the Lessons from Your Hairstylist podcast, where we uncover and leverage your unique beauty and personal style. I'm your host, Sarah Cruz, a beauty industry educator and hairstylist with 30 years experience. This show is dedicated to providing you with insights and practical advice for living a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Experience that special stylist-client bond right here as we dive into conversations with experts in beauty and wellness. Here, you'll gain valuable tips on personal style and self-care to empower your journey. Join me to unlock the secrets to living beautifully well while elevating your lifestyle, mind, body, and spirit. Your appointment is now, so have a seat and get ready for transformation. Well, hello and welcome to the Lessons from Your Hairstylist podcast. I'm your host and hairstylist friend, Sarah Cruz. And today I am so excited to invite on someone that I've gotten to know a little bit recently in my hair and makeup business, Black Tie and Blush. So we are an on-site hair and makeup company for weddings and special events here in Nashville, as you may well know. And Christine McDevitt is a wedding planner here in the Nashville area. And we've worked together on a wedding, and I got to know her and just really, really enjoyed her and loved working alongside her. And I thought to myself, it would be super interesting to just have her come on and talk to us a little bit about what it's like if you're someone who is planning a wedding, whether you're here in Nashville or wherever it is that you may be. She is going to give us the inside scoop on wedding planning, what it is that she does, and give you all the stuff that you really need to know just to make sure that you are getting everything in order, that you're making sure just so that you know what to expect, so that you know how to plan. And so if there are any pitfalls that could be coming along your way, you're going to maybe know how to navigate those things. I think that wedding planning is a super interesting thing to go into, especially if you are planning a wedding, to kind of get an inside look into that process. So Christine is the owner and the lead planner of her business, CM Event Design, here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I am so excited to bring you on, Christine. Thank you so much for just taking the time out to be here with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you and I got to work together a little bit side by side at a recent event here in Nashville. And I was just kind of drawn to your personality. You're always very warm and smiley. And I can see why you're a great success here in the Nashville area with your business and the wedding planning industry. And so coming from a different perspective as a vendor of hair and makeup, you are on the other side of things as well, where you are kind of taking all of the other vendors and sort of trying to help, I think, maybe get all of that stuff rolled into one so that things go really smoothly for the bride and her family and friends. But I want to just dive in a little bit first off, just to ask you a bit about what it is you do and how you got into it.
Oh, gosh. Well, this is probably dating myself, and I'm probably going to show my age here in a second. But I started way back when in the hotel industry in the 90s, and I started on the room side, so front desk and reservations. But the sales and catering people always looked like they were having so much fun. They were always taking people like out to sporting events and out to lunches and out for drinks and dinners and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, well, I'm working a million hours as a front office manager, and I want to do what they're doing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to hop over to the catering side. So I did, and I definitely like the social side better than corporate meetings, but I learned very quickly. I worked more hours than I actually did at the front desk. But really, that's when I first started getting into weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs and fundraisers and galas and, anniversaries and all that. But weddings is really what I developed a true passion for. And I was lucky enough to work for some beautiful hotels around the country before settling in Nashville. And once I got here, I was like, you know what? I am ready to go on my own and start my own business. And I took that leap of faith. Here I am 5 years later. My company now has a team of 6.
Wow. And isn't that crazy to go from sort of an idea and a dream? I can completely relate to that. And to then having a team, like, who am I? How did that happen? Kind of thing. I don't know if you feel that way, but I kind of feel that way. And
Yes, I
and that
do.
entrepreneurial, spirit is something that sometimes you didn't even know that you had, but you wouldn't have gotten to where you are. I mean, probably doesn't seem like short years to you, but in the span of 5 years to have, this team and to have the success that you've had in this area in Nashville I mean, that's pretty extraordinary because running a business ain't easy, right? I mean,
No, it's definitely not. And I think one of the things that, and this isn't necessarily wedding related, but I think one of the things that people don't think about when they start a small business or go off on their own is all of a sudden, like, you're paying your own marketing, you're paying your own website fees, you're paying your own health insurance, all that sort of stuff. So, anybody starting their own business, just think about that too.
yeah.
Take that into consideration.
And it's all on your shoulders. You're leading. I mean, I know we're going to be talking about wedding planning and that kind of thing, but I think that, a lot of people listening may be solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or, business owners themselves. And you just don't realize everything that goes into it. And you have to be a leader. You've got to have those leadership skills and also with what it is that you do, you got to be able to lead. And so I would love to just hear a little bit about that part of your personality and sort of like what it takes with your personal and your professional development. How has that come along so that you have been able to get to where you are now?
Oh gosh. So, it's one of those things I always think is you have to learn how to crawl before you can walk. And it's the same career wise. There's a lot of people in this industry who think that they had so much fun planning their own wedding and now they're going to become a wedding planner. And it's a lot different when you plan your own wedding than it is when you plan somebody else's wedding. So you need to take into consideration, what do you do when somebody's style doesn't match your own? What do you do when the father or the bride is very upset that there's not a particular type of alcohol on the bar? What do you do if there is a food allergy or somebody's been overserved? And, you need to learn with experience. And that's really what it is. And I never would have started my company if I didn't have the experience that I had. I mean, I had 20 years of experience before I started my company, and there were some challenging times. I mean, there were days I'd go home and I would cry. And I was like, why do I do this for a living?
Mm-hmm.
And there were days that, my boss would call me at 4:30 in the morning and because he had an idea. And I was like, I just got home at midnight or 1 a.m. from last night's events. Like, but it was all of that and all of those experiences that I think made me the person that I am today, both personally and professionally. I would say I'm definitely strong-minded. I'm goal-oriented. I know what I want. I know where I want my company to go. I always am looking for the next opportunity. But at the same time, I want to make sure I'm mentoring my team because I would never want to stifle their dreams. If they want to go on and start their own company, as long as it's not competing with mine, absolutely. Like,
Right.
go right ahead and let me do whatever I can to help you get to that point. So I think that's just really important. And I think having good people that work for you is going to help make you successful. I mean, the team that I have right now isn't the same team that, I had 3 years ago. It took us a bit to get to this point. And I have such an amazing team right now, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. And I know
Mhm.
that, and I
Wow.
value them, and
Mm-hmm.
I respect them. And I work on the day of a wedding just as hard as they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I might do all the pre-planning, but that doesn't mean I'm not busting my butt the day of a wedding.
Oh, you're there. I see you.
Yes.
You're there. And
Yes.
it's everything that you're saying makes me think that we might just be related because I'm just zeroed into all that stuff because everything that you have said with just being so goal oriented, knowing exactly where you want to go with your business, always looking for the next opportunity, yet wanting to mentor and support the people that you're leading, wanting to make a difference. And that 20 years of experience and just the adventures that you walk through before you start your own business. When I said, oh, 5 short years, you're so successful. I think that's what everybody thinks, right? Is like,
Yeah.
oh, like you just did it so quick. Oh my gosh, but little do they know. And it's like me and my industry, everything that came before me even starting this business, it's the same thing. People don't know what it took to really get there. I could talk to you about business all day long, and I think we should just like go out for drinks or something at some point.
You just let me know when.
Okay. Okay. But I do want to dive into the things that I think that a listener is going to be really interested in if they are planning a wedding.
Sure.
And so, what do you think was the thing that really inspired you, and what do you love the best about the whole wedding planning process?
The one moment for me out of the entire process is not the ceremony, not the wedding couple's first look. It is when I get to do their room reveal of their reception. So it is when they get to see their reception room before anybody else goes in there. And it is the two of them, their photographer, and myself, and nobody else is in the room. And to see their reaction to their vision come to life means the world to me. I
Yeah.
mean, the looks on their faces, that to me is why I do what I do. I mean, I've had clients say to me, it looks better than I ever thought it really would, like ever imagined that it would, ever
Yeah.
hoped that it would.
There's so few times in someone's life where they're truly blown away, and to know that you have a big hand, you're responsible for that one moment of their life. Like you said, the ceremony is great. The getting married part is great, but that big reveal is probably one of the most magical moments that they'll have. And
Yes.
to know that you have pulled that together, I can understand why that is a big part of why it is that you do what you do.
But not only that, like for me, it's also the relationships that I've built with clients. I mean, I have clients that I consider friends that years later I'm still in touch with, and not just through social media in touch with, but we text or, go out for drinks or out for dinner. I have a client, a bride from 2023, who one of her bridesmaids just got engaged last month. And she said, you need to call Christine. She needs to be your wedding planner. And I just booked her wedding yesterday.
That is the best.
It is. And it's just, for me, it's knowing that I really brought somebody's wedding vision to life and made their dream a reality, that they would refer me to somebody who means so much to them. That means the world to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I do what I do.
That's the ultimate compliment for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love that. What advice would you give to someone who is planning a wedding? What are some things that couples would need to consider when they're looking for someone to work with as far as planning their wedding?
The first is establish a budget. Everybody is very excited when they get engaged, as they should be, but they need to establish a budget because you want to make sure that you're not overspending or blowing the majority of your budget either on the rental of your venue or on your planner.
Yeah.
I'm not the most expensive planner out there, but I'm not the cheapest planner out there. And I don't want to take up too much of somebody's budget. So one of the questions I always ask is, what's your budget? And if somebody's below a certain budget, I'll refer them to another planner because I won't be the best person for them because they need to take into consideration all the other expenses that go along with planning a wedding. So that is the first thing I would say to anyone who is getting married. Figure out your budget first.
Yeah.
And then let's see where we're at.
Can you walk through what like a typical timeline would look like for the day of? I know when we do consultation calls, there's just so many things that they don't know. And they don't even know like how the day is going to go. And I think when somebody's thinking about the day of their wedding, they're kind of envisioning like how the day is going to go. What does a typical timeline look like?
It depends. So like, let's use the wedding that we worked on together, Julie and John's wedding, for example. So we had access to the venue at 10 a.m. So everybody arrived at 10 a.m. You and your team arrived at 10. Julie and her girls arrived at 10. That's when hair and makeup started. Shortly after that, at that point, I'm overseeing the rental company, loading in tables, chairs, linens. I'm doing all the behind the scenes stuff, making sure when the guys get to the venue, Julie's not seeing John and all that sort of stuff. But at that point, I've already talked to Allie on your team and, have worked out the timeline to make sure that everybody has hair and makeup done before pictures start, and making sure that Julie's being done, not necessarily last, but close to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think every bride realizes that she doesn't have to go last. I wouldn't recommend a bride go last. Second to last, yes, but not last because there's different pictures. There's different things that we want to make sure our bride is gonna be able to do at that point. Plus, as you guys get to touch ups and things like that, we want to make sure the bride is the freshest looking one.
Yes.
So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And then, the photographer will show up and do some of the getting ready photos. And I think a lot of times people think the wedding day is going to be a lot more relaxing than it is. I mean, it's a hectic day and it goes by very, very quickly. And I don't think brides realize that because once hair and makeup starts, next thing you know, the bride's getting dressed and photos are happening and the first look, or, if they're not doing a first look photo, maybe they're doing a first touch where they're either standing back to back or around a corner and reading private vows to each other. And then it's ceremony and reception and the day's over. I mean, it goes by really, really fast.
So fast. And I agree with you. We do the same thing. We try to make sure that they understand that things go very quickly. And the thing that we run into is we have a timeline, and then they're very leisurely and they think they have all this time in the world when we first start, and they're wondering like, why are the hair and makeup artists going like TikTok, like we got to get started. And it seems like it's hours away. But
why is the wedding planner going like this with the watch all the time?
Yeah, I know. It's the things that we know that they just, and then the bride is so chill for like the longest time. And then all of a sudden she looks up and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to be, and then it's kind of like, so we try to pad our time while
Mhm.
at the same time kind of working with the wedding planners and, and the other vendors as well to make sure that things go smoothly, because we hate having people waiting on us being like, well, why is hair and makeup taking so long? And it's because we didn't get anybody in the chairs on time.
Right.
you
And
know?
like, I always make sure, and one of the things that, as a planner, and the majority of the planning I do is full service planning, but as a planner, when I'm working with clients trying to find the best vendors to fit their needs that would pair the best with a particular wedding couple when it comes to hair and makeup, I make them write out a list of
Hmm.
who's going to need hair, who's going to need makeup. And then I have them double check it, usually with both moms, like bride's mom, groom's mom, to make sure that they're not trying to slide in last minute people, because that throws the entire timeline off. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we can't do it. You can't be
No.
throwing in, the brother of the bride's girlfriend,
No.
which I had that happen
Well, we have
once.
we're pretty
Yeah.
strict about how things have to go. Nobody
Yeah.
can slip in unless there's like, tons
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, we can't.
No, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's just those little things that they don't realize, that they just don't think about. And that's what they have you for, and have us for. So I know we talked about budgeting, and sometimes, it may be that it's outside of their budget to have a planner, but at the same time, like, I feel that and hair and makeup is some of the best money that they can spend, really,
It is.
because that is their entire experience for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And even I feel like, I mean, the cake's important and other things are important, but you're getting ready time and how you're going to look in your pictures and making sure that everything is going smoothly for the day. I think that cannot be overstated. I try to tell
No.
everybody.
And the other thing too is, you know, don't have your friend or your aunt or your cousin be your planner or your day of coordinator. The best gift you can give to somebody is to let them come to your wedding and enjoy it.
Yeah,
They're not a professional. They don't know how to handle certain things. They're hire a professional. Find a way to fit it in your budget and
it's
hire
important.
the
I mean,
right planner for you. It will
if
make the whole process so much smoother.
and it's so worth it. I mean, it's money well spent. And I tell them, in 5 years, you're going to look back and not be sad that you spent that money. You're not even going to know it, but you're sure
Mhm.
going to have the memory of how that date went.
Yep.
And I've had moms and aunts, and like you said, sitting in the chair getting their hair done, and they're just flustered and they're all over the place and they're texting and they're like, oh, so and so's got it. And they're like up and down out of the chair, and they're not enjoying it one bit because they're stressed out. And it's just, I know that everybody does have a budget, but I think really, I mean, would you agree, allotting the right things for, I don't know how to say this, I guess I think it's important to really be particular about where you're spending the majority of your money.
Yes.
And with that, what would you say are some budgeting pitfalls maybe that you've seen couples, fall into, what that they could avoid? Because there's that too.
So some of my industry friends, if they ever see this podcast, will probably not love me for saying this. But like, if you can't afford the hanging floral arrangement, like the hanging flower cloud, or maybe instead of doing like the premium priced bar, do the house brands,
Right.
take some of that into consideration. That will save you some money. Look at the cost of meals. I mean, look at the cost of one entree versus another entree. Think
What about the
about
time of
your
day? I
guest
mean,
list. I mean, you don't have to let everybody have a plus one. You really, really don't. And I know there are people who are like, well, etiquette, they should if they're an adult. And I've gone to enough weddings as an adult where I haven't had a plus one.
yeah.
Yeah,
what
I
would
mean,
you
it's
say?
fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're big people.
Yeah,
We can handle it. And if they care about that person and they truly want to be there,
yeah,
then, I mean,
yeah.
you're there for the bride.
Well, you're there to celebrate their love story. Not letting everybody bring a plus one is definitely a way to save money. I
And what
mean,
about the time of day? Would you say, like, obviously, if people are going to be having dinner or if they're going to have their wedding around dinner time, it seems they'd be spending more on catering. Would you say maybe back it up earlier or how, or does that matter?
it's no, not really, because they're still spending on all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Unless it was a smaller, more intimate wedding, maybe a very nice, like, backyard tented reception where it was at somebody's home. But,
Mm-hmm.
you're still spending money on a venue rental. You're still spending money on rentals for tables, chairs, linens, all that sort of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
doing a brunch wedding doesn't really save you all that much.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
good to know because sometimes people, I think, and I've heard that too before, where people say, well, we'll just have it earlier and we don't have to feed people, so.
Oh, God. You should always feed your wedding guest.
Oh,
Always.
good to know. Good to know. Always feed your wedding.
Always.
Oh my gosh. What is something that you think that couples should look for in a wedding vendor? Say other vendors that they're looking at. What do you think would be some, I don't want to say red flags. Are there things that someone should look for when they're hiring a vendor for their wedding? And are there any, I hate to say red flags.
Oh, there are definitely red flags. If the person doesn't have a website, yes, do not hire them. If the person doesn't have any sort of social media showing their personal work, do not hire them. If they're not responding to your initial inquiry within 24 hours, do not hire them because they're just not going to get back to you ever. The last thing is if they tell you you don't have to sign a contract.
Ooh,
If they
yeah.
tell you you don't have to sign a contract, they are just going to take your deposit and they're going to run. Every client I work with, I will only let my clients work with licensed and insured vendors. I require all my clients to sign contracts with their vendors. I look at all the contracts before my clients sign, and I keep a copy of all the contracts that they sign. So that way I can ensure that the vendor is adhering to everything that's in the contract the day of the wedding. But there are Facebook groups that are wedding groups, and you'll see, oh, my photographer didn't show up. I mean, I'm sure you see it on the makeup side of things. You'll see people saying, my makeup artist just didn't show up, or she gave me an excuse the night before and I'm out $1,200 or whatever it might be, and I need somebody to do my hair and makeup tomorrow.
We
And
get it all the time.
yeah, and it's
All the
because
time.
they just sent this person money and didn't sign a contract and didn't get any sort of receipt, and they have Facebook messages. They don't even have emails. It's Facebook messages or
I know.
Instagram messages. And that is not the way to go about hiring a vendor.
Contracts are so important. They not only protect the vendor, but they protect the client.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tell, our clients as well. Our agreement is called a promise agreement. And it's because it's our promise as well, is here's how we're going to hold up our end of the bargain as well.
Mm-hmm.
Should something happen, here's how you're protected. And I think having that be as clear as possible, those things are put into place to make things go more smoothly. I look at that as not so much of like a limitation, but guidelines to help everyone feel in control and know what's going on and understand the terms so that everything goes so much more smoothly. So I 100% agree with you. What do you recommend for couples if they are handling I mean, I know that it's good to have a planner, obviously, because that's something you said you keep copies of the contracts to kind of help to navigate situations that could come up that are either confusing to the client or something's not going exactly right. How do you handle that? And how would a client handle a situation that would come up where it's a disagreement or something like that? How would you handle that? And then where would a client be left if they didn't have a planner?
If a couple doesn't have a planner, I mean, are they really reading all the fine lines in the contract? And they're going to just be like, okay, I have this vendor, they have my date, this is the time I need them for. But they might not be looking at, oh, well, it says because my wedding's this many miles away, I have to reimburse him for travel and hotel and this and that. And all of a sudden the vendor's like, well, you owe me an extra $1,200, which seems to be the number I keep throwing out today. But
I think it's
$1,200 right now. But no, I mean, that's one of the big benefits about having a planner, because we know what to look for in contracts.
Oh, that right there is worth its weight, I think. That right there is worth its weight for any bride. That right there would sell why you would need to get yourself a planner, because they're looking at your contracts and they're protecting you. They're protecting your day and your experience.
Yeah.
In essence. Yeah. And so what do you do if something on the day actually goes wrong? If there's some kind of like crazy disturbance or like anything could happen? As you know, I know you've been in it long enough that just anything can happen. Like what if there's some friction and with the family members, or like, what do you do in those situations? So many things can happen, but
well, the key thing is to not let the wedding couple know and to not let the parents know. Whatever the issue might be needs to be handled in what we call back of house. So it needs to be handled either in a separate room, outside, in the kitchen. Like it just needs to be handled somewhere else if there is an issue. Now, there's been plenty of times where 3 different stories just popped into my head.
Tell us one. Just share one. I got to hear it. I got to hear what's the one that stands out in your mind.
I can roll with the punches. I'm good.
Literally.
I've already kind of forgotten about it. I mean, I've had drinks thrown on me. I've had stuff thrown at me.
What? What is wrong with people?
Let me tell you, weddings are a little like funerals in the sense that they bring out the best and worst in people. I mean, I literally can roll with the punches.
But then it was fine afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Like after they felt bad, but you say you've had so many things happen before that it's just, yeah.
And even since then, I mean, I had something thrown at me at a wedding last year by a drunk guest. I know a photographer who was hit in the face by a guest this year. So I lived in Vegas for 5.5 years, but I relate it to, there's something that happens when people get on a plane to go to Vegas. They lose all common sense. Like all common sense just goes out the window. That happens at weddings. I don't know what it is, but common sense just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And a big part of my job on the day of a wedding is to be a babysitter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a very high paid babysitter, but I'm a babysitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want it to be good for the couple and you don't want them to stress over it. And you're just like, you're over here just trying to keep everybody.
I take care of the problems, and again, my job is to handle the issues or foresee any issues before they might happen and handle it. And I'd say 9.8 times out of 10, I do.
Well,
and nobody knows.
You're incredible. I've seen firsthand, but I'll tell you once again, just another reason why that is money well spent. Wedding planner is like number one on the list, I would think. I mean, yeah, the other things are important, but I just think that that's an invaluable asset to have. It takes the pressure off. And if you're trying to enjoy your day, and people so underestimate the fact that they're going to be able to do it themselves. And I see it from where we are, and I don't do what you do. But
No, but like you said, you see it with people sitting in their chair, like in your chair, and
yeah,
they're stressed about whatever's going on during setup. Then you have people interrupting to ask some questions. And I like to say we take care of the stupid questions the day of, like, where's the cake supposed to go? Or, oh, the alcohol's being delivered. Where do I put it? We handle
mhm.
all that sort of stuff. So everybody else can just enjoy the day.
And that's what it's about, because you've invested all this time and money into this. It's like you
Mhm.
want to really relish that day. I mean, and you can put it out there on social media. You can try to shout it from the rooftops and get people to understand that you need your professionals to look out for you and help you through the process, to know, so that you don't have to find out the things that you don't know on the most important day, of your entire life
Yeah.
sometimes. And with that, I think a lot of times, you've got to collaborate and coordinate with, the other vendors. I mean, can you talk a little bit about, what is that like? And specifically for us beauty professionals, what are some things that, you run into that can be a challenge with other vendors, and sort of how do you navigate that? Because I feel like you're kind of like the mother of all of the other stuff going on, and you're trying to like wrap your arms around all this other stuff that's happening, and you've got all the moving parts, and we're just
Yeah.
all these moving parts in the process. So you just talk about that a little bit.
I feel like I'm the puppet master with all
Yes.
the strings. I will say it is a lot, and having an organized timeline, I think, helps everybody. And that's one of the reasons I share the final timeline with all the vendors.
Mm,
So, and I incorporate all the timelines in. So that's why, especially with hair and makeup, I'll take what you guys send me as far as, okay, this is what time we're starting. This is what time the bride is getting into either the hair chair or the makeup chair. And then this is what time we're doing touch-ups. And this is what time the last person is starting. So that way, photographer knows, okay, well, I can start doing detail photos while this person's being finished. And from there, it just flows nicely when you have an organized timeline. So everybody is working together as seamlessly as possible. I mean, that's
yeah.
really what it
Do
is. And
you?
it's my job to make sure that that happens.
Yeah.
It really is.
And you really have to communicate with all of the vendors to make sure that everybody's on the same page, which is just like herding cats, I'm sure.
It
Um,
is.
do you normally get a timeline agenda from your hair and makeup teams?
Only if I ask for it. So it depends on who it comes from. So you guys, yes. There's one other company that will send it to me without me having to ask. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay. Yeah. It's important, I think, to have that really tight on the day of. And I know that that's, really important to you. That's an important piece, so that you're able to get everything else coordinated. With everything that you do with all of this stuff, I imagine it's got to be like fairly stressful at times. And I know you work a lot, especially being an entrepreneur, and you're building a very successful business. And I know we tend to work on our own businesses 24 hours a day if we're not careful.
Yes.
What are some things that you do, just as someone who runs a business, as somebody who is trying to balance that between literally trying to take care of themselves and run their own business? What are some things that you kind of do for yourself to sort of recharge and make sure that you're the very best you can be for your brides?
I'm not sure what this fall has been like for you, but it has been
Insane.
insane. Um,
Insane.
it's just been insane. Honestly, I would say I'm that person who my phone goes into silent mode at 10:30 at night and does not come off silent until 5:30 in the morning. I try really hard to get at least 7 hours of sleep at night.
Yeah.
I will also wake up in the middle of the night because my brain will kick in and I'll start thinking about things, and I will sleep with a notepad next to my bed so I can jot things down, because I might wake up thinking about somebody's wedding, somebody's event. And the night before weddings, I don't sleep because I think about everything that's going to go on the next day and everything that I have to do. And that's when I start to think of, do I see anything that could come up that might be any sort of roadblock? But overall, self-care is so important. I haven't been the best at it this fall, but
It's a process, and it's something you have to constantly try to remind yourself to do.
I have a little Yorkie. We do a 1.5 mile walk every morning. And then 6 days a week, I get on the treadmill and do another 2.5 to 3.5 miles. And during that time, it is my time. I will do like an iFit workout where I'm walking through Italy or Iceland or wherever they're going to take me on that day's workout. I mean, I hate the fact that I need to exercise and actually like get on the treadmill, but when I get off, I feel so good and so energized and ready to start the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, that's part of my self-care.
That's huge self-care. Yeah. So you feel like having that exercise, getting that 7 hours of sleep, and of course your Yorkie, that's therapy right there. Just the dog, is like, I think that's just therapy all in and of itself. But honestly, moving your body every day does energize you. I agree. And if you're getting 7 hours of sleep, I know you're waking up in the night because we can't help it because we care about
Yes.
we care.
Yes.
And I keep the notepad there too. I'm the same way. I keep the notepad, but
It's good to know I'm not the only one.
no, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. And all we can do, right, is just try to give ourselves those little things that we need, because really, ultimately, I feel like that bodes well for the bride and for the wedding party when you're taking care of yourself. I mean, if you're burning the candle at both ends all the time and you just never stop, something's going to go wrong. Something's not going to work out. Something's going to get missed. So,
and that's one of the reasons as well that we typically only do one wedding a weekend. That's very rarely will I do 2 weddings in one weekend. It's just, I want to make sure I devote enough time and attention and pay attention to the details for each wedding. And if you're becoming a wedding factory as a planner, I don't think you can do that. And I think that things tend to get missed. So, that, in my opinion, is a little bit of self-care as well, only taking on what I know I can handle.
Everything you're talking about is just like, you're just like right zeroing into my brain and kind of where I am as well, because having that space, like I just kind of call it openness in my schedule, or some space to be able to, if something needs to get taken care of that's extra, or I've got a little bit of leeway and everything's not so cramped together in my time that I feel like I don't have any wiggle room in anything. I want to feel like there's some openness and some space to make sure that things get handled the way that they want to. And I think for someone to hire someone who understands that, the importance of that, really, again, makes it so that their experience is going to be that much better. And again, another reason why you're not the least expensive. We're definitely not the least expensive either. We're probably not the highest, probably not the least, but for what it is that we do try to provide to the client to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible, I think somebody owes it to themselves if they can do that, to make sure that there was someone who's really conscientious of making sure that they're giving it everything, and that client is the center of attention. And doing one wedding a weekend, I can understand that. It would just I can't imagine doing more than that. I mean, looking at the one that we just worked together on, I mean, with all of the moving parts of that, I couldn't do one of those in 6 months time, much less. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine anybody that could take on, two weddings or
Yeah.
3. I mean, some people, like you said, just are kind of a factory. And I think that clients don't understand. They're like, "Oh, just fit this in. Can you just fit this in?" And there's no fitting anything in. You just can't,
Right.
not really do that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I want to know, do you see any current trends that are starting to develop on the horizon for weddings? And, what are some things that you're starting to see going forward, maybe for 2025 and on down the road, some trends that are developing?
So it's funny you should say that. So I just saw on Instagram today. So I follow an Instagram account called Brides. It's like Brides Magazine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very upset by what they're saying is going to be a trend for
Oh, no.
2025.
Oh, no. What?
They said that people are going to stop doing like the traditional multi-tiered wedding cakes and they're going to start doing sheet cakes and they're going to cut the sheet cakes. And I don't care if you have a sheet cake in the back to cut for your guest.
Yeah.
At least still do a small, maybe 2-tiered cake. It's so much more elegant and special to cut a tiered cake than to cut something you had as like a birthday party cake growing up as a kid.
I hope that does not catch on.
Yeah, me too. So that is a trend I hope does not catch on. There are some really fun trends that we're seeing more and more of, like the champagne tower, where the coupe glasses will be set in the pyramid and the bride and groom will take the champagne bottle and pour it over and it just flows. That's always a lot of fun. Thankfully, a lot of couples are getting away from the bouquet and garter toss. The bouquet toss is fine. The garter toss is really uncomfortable for everybody. The other thing that's becoming a trend, again, it goes back to cake cutting, is not really announcing the cake cuttings anymore and just letting the couple do it and get on with the night.
And let everybody else kind of go do their thing. Yeah.
There's always the Pantone comes out with what's supposed to be the color of the year.
It's the color.
So 2024 was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be like tangerine or something. It was supposed to be some weird like orangey color this year. 90% of my weddings were like light blue and I loved it. Like I had so many blue weddings this year and it was my favorite. And I was like,
Beautiful.
Can we just continue this into 2025? I'm loving this color palette.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's beautiful. And I think we're going to start seeing more of the either smaller bridal parties or no bridal parties. Or if people have larger bridal parties, they'll be seated during the ceremony and not standing. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of going back to the classic black tie and black dresses.
I love that.
Bridal party. I love it. I love the classic, the elegant,
yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And when you said smaller parties, we're getting a lot of elopement requests, hair and makeup for just the bride. Or bride plus 1 or 2, something like that. Very small.
Yeah.
So,
last year I had a couple of weddings that had 13 on each side. And
oh yeah, that's a lot.
It's by the time you get everybody down the aisle, it's like it's time for the ceremony to be over.
Yeah. You have so many personality dynamics too going on with all of that. That is like,
I can tell you also, no bridal suite is big enough for 13 people.
No.
And that's another suggestion. And I always remind my brides of this. Try to keep the bridal suites clean because the photographers do pictures in there.
Right.
Yeah. As clean as possible. At least keep one corner clean.
It is hard with the photographers. And then, I know like for hair and makeup, we've got all our stuff everywhere and it looks, it can tend to look all cluttered and trying to move stuff out of the way. We're trying to, it is. That's it. I understand that. And it is tough. And the more people you have, obviously, the more stuff you're going to have. I mean, they all have like every bridesmaid has everything that they in their entire repertoire. I mean, they just have everything under the sun with them.
And I'm like, you're having your hair done. You're having your makeup done. Why are
They
you
have
bringing your own
they
curling
have
iron
everything.
and your
I
own
know.
makeup? Like, why? Like, come with one change of clothes. Like, just come in the clothes you're wearing, bring your dress, and then change at the end of the night back into the clothes you came in. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. That's so funny.
yeah.
Well, I think we're gonna have to probably wrap it up because I don't want to keep you much longer, but
Perfect.
I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been so fun to talk to you. And I can tell you, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. I mean, I could just go on and on. I think it's so interesting. And so I would love for you to come back on at some point and we can chat again because
I
I
would
have
love to.
a ton more questions I could ask you. Well, let me just ask you, if you have one piece of advice, what's the most important thing that someone should know?
Remember that the day is about the two of you. The day is about the two of you. The day is about your marriage and not necessarily the wedding. There's no right and no wrong. It's about what the two of you want, not what your grandmother wants, your uncle wants you to do. You know what? If you want to serve fried chicken, serve fried chicken. If you want to serve a sorbet course, do it. If you don't want to do a champagne toast, don't do it. I mean, it's really about what the two of you want to do and what's going to make you happy that day. And I feel like a lot of couples forget that throughout the planning process.
There's so many shoulds in planning a wedding. And I think you're right. So many times the brides and their bridal parties, their families get caught up in what should happen, what should we do, and really, you're right. It is all about their day and really being unique and doing the thing that they want to do themselves. Because that's the one chance you get to stand out and make a statement. And
Yeah.
so I totally agree with you. And I love that you encourage brides to do their own thing. And I think it's so important to have someone like you, a wedding planner, who encourages the bride to have their own individuality and also to kind of help be a little bit of a referee between family and them and trying to keep them focused and in a good place. I mean, all of that. You're like a therapist. You're like you said, like a babysitter. There's so many hats that you're wearing on the day of the wedding. It's totally invaluable. So I just cannot recommend getting a wedding planner enough to anyone who's planning a wedding.
Well,
So
I appreciate that.
yes, I tell everybody, I'm like, listen, don't forego the wedding planner. You'll be sorry. I've already seen it. I already know. Can you tell us where people can find you, your website, Instagram, socials, things like that?
Sure. Website is www.cmeventdesign.com. Instagram is cm.event.design. Facebook, CM Event Design. And TikTok, even though I don't post all that much on TikTok, is also CM Event Design.
Perfect. And I'm impressed that you could remember that because it would be hard for me to come off with that. But we will put all of those things in the show notes so people can find you if they're looking to hire a planner or if they just want to reach out to you. And then
Amazing.
I will have all of that information for everyone there. Well, Christine, thank you again so much for coming on. Again, Christine McDevitt here in Nashville, Tennessee, your wedding planner, your go-to wedding planner at cmeventdesign.com. And like I said, we'll have all of that information right here in the show notes for you to look her up, reach out to her if you're in need of a wedding planner for your upcoming event. Christine, again, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you on again. We're going to have to do this again because I feel like we could go on and on.
I would love to, Sarah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Lessons from Your Hairstylist. I hope you found inspiration and actionable insights to embrace your unique beauty and elevate your life. Remember, it's all about taking small steps towards a happier, healthier you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Together, let's continue unlocking the secrets to living beautifully fulfilled. Until our next appointment, keep your thoughts on your visions, your self-talk kind, and remember to keep your heart open so you don't miss any opportunities waiting for you out there. I'll see you on the next one.